Hey, what's going on? It's Dr. Gonzo Boogie here again, back for another October Halloween video. And in this video I was going to show you guys my entire classic horror collection. I actually keep most of my classic horror films together in this one shelf, and it's actually it's a small shelf and it's like two layers. There's this one that has most of my Universal stuff, and then this one above, which has most of my Hammer horror stuff and some Alfred Hitchcock movies. But in this video, I'm just going to go through the Alfred Hitchcock and the classic horror that I have down here, because I actually plan on doing a separate video where I talk about my Hammer horror films, which I plan to also put up sometime this month, because usually every year I try to do an update on my Hammer collection, especially if I bought in some stuff. And since last year, I've gotten a few more tapes and a good like 2-3 more Hammer DVDs. So yeah, I think it's worth doing an update, and I love to talk about the Hammer films around Halloween too. So that'll probably be one of my next videos, my Hammer video. But this one I'm going to talk about all my classic horror, and I have a lot of the Universal horror movies. I have some silent horror movies, and then I have a bunch of other stuff that I'll mention real quick. And like I said before, I have the Alfred Hitchcock movies too. So I'm just going to go into this one because I don't want this video getting long like my last one. So I'm going to start off right here with, I have this really cool Elite Entertainment 3-pack that comes with some of the German expressionist horror movies. This pack's actually called the Masterworks of the German Horror Cinema, and it comes with Nosferatu, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I think is how you pronounce that, and then the Golem, which I've actually never seen the Golem, but the other two I've seen. So these are always fun to watch around Halloween time, and that's really the only time I check out some of these silent horror movies. Nosferatu, I actually used to watch a lot when I first got into collecting horror movies around Halloween time, but I haven't seen it in a while, so I was actually thinking of maybe giving that one a try this year. But just a really nice set, and I really like Elite Entertainment. Any horror movie that I have released by them has always been good quality and decent packaging too. And there's a pretty cool booklet with this too that talks about films and everything. So a really nice set if you ever come across this one. Alright, next up I actually have a separate copy of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which again I'm not exactly sure if that's how you pronounce that name, just going with it with that one. And again, this is a really cool German expressionist horror movie. This is actually from, what year is this from? I think the 1919 or 1920. It doesn't really say good on here because there's a lot of reissues and everything in the movie. It might say on this first one. I mean, I'm sure you could just look up on the computer anyways. But oh yeah, 1921 it says on this Elite pack. And Nosferatu came out in 1922. So this one's really cool. Very awesome. If you've seen the Rob Zombie's Living Dead Girl video, it's kind of based off of the design and look of this movie. So just a classic horror movie for sure. Then I have this 2-pack of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And this is a cool 2-pack. I really like the 1932 version. It was directed by the director of The Wizard of Oz, and it was actually that director's follow-up to Wizard of Oz. So he directed Wizard of Oz and then this, and I just think this is a really good Dr. Jekyll movie. I would say probably the best, the one from 1932. And then this also includes the 1941 version, which I've seen only once, and from what I remember, it was pretty good too, but not as good as the original 32 version. And the one from 1932 also has a really good transformation scene to Mr. Hyde, so that's actually my favorite Mr. Hyde transformation scene I've ever seen in a movie. Then I have this 3-pack Fox Horror Classics Volume 2. And I basically bought this for Shandu the Magician, which is an older Lugosi film from around the time he did Dracula. But this came with a couple other cool ones too, like Dragonwick and Dr. Renault's Secret. But the only one I've seen on this pack is Shandu the Magician, and I thought it was a really good movie with Lugosi, and it wasn't really what I expected. And I actually can't remember too many details from it, but from what I remember, it was really good. And if you love Bela Lugosi, especially when he was in his prime, right after Dracula, definitely one to check out. And then I have the Frankenstein Legacy Collection. And the Frankenstein series is actually my favorite Universal Monster series, but I love basically all the Universal Monster movies. Ever since I was a little kid, I would always watch them around Halloween time, and I would just always watch them all the time. They were really some of the first movies I got obsessed with, the first movies I collected on DVD, and some of the first horror movies that I bought memorabilia for and stuff like that. So they've always just had a special place in my life, the Universal Monsters and everything. So, and these are some of the best. I think Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein are probably my two favorite Universal Monster movies ever, but Son of Frankenstein is also really good. And then, of course, House of Frankenstein and Ghost of Frankenstein, and all of them are really good movies. But really, if you've never seen them or you're trying to watch some of the ones that are really good, I would highly suggest the first Frankenstein and its sequel, Bride of Frankenstein, which is considered to be one of the first horror sequels ever, Bride of Frankenstein. Alright, and then next up here we have the Creature from the Black Lagoon Legacy Collection, and this is actually the re-releases that just came out, and I actually plan on picking more of these up because I need to get some of the Universal Monster films on DVD still, and this is really like the cheapest and easiest way to get them right now, in my opinion, on DVD. So definitely going to pick more of these up. But this comes with all three Creature films: Creature from the Black Lagoon, Revenge of the Creature, and The Creature Walks Among Us. And all three are really good. I would highly recommend any of the Creature from the Black Lagoon movies. Just a cool set. Some cool movies too. And then next up I have this Universal 4-pack. That comes with The Mummy, The Wolfman, The Invisible Man, and The Phantom of the Opera. And this is a really nice pack because it actually comes with a separate disc for each movie. Each disc has its own features and trailers and everything. Just a really nice budgety 4-pack of the older Universal separate editions. And I love The Mummy, one of my favorite Boris Karloff films. The Invisible Man is directed by James Whale, who also did Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, and it's another one of the best Universal movies ever, The Invisible Man. Alright, next up we have Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, and this is just as classic as a classic horror movie can get. I mean, Bela Lugosi's role as Dracula is probably one of the most iconic performances in horror movie history. And this DVD edition actually includes the restored version, the one that has new music by Philip Glass, which I think is the edition that they released on the Classic Monster series that they put out on VHS. I think that edition of Dracula actually has the Philip Glass score on it. And then it also comes with the Spanish version of Dracula, which is pretty cool because it has a different cast and different production crew and everything, but they use the same sets. So it's just really interesting to see if you've seen the classic Dracula, this one like a dozen times. This was directed by Todd Browning, who's another one of the classic Universal Monster directors. And then I have Creatures from the Black Lagoon separate, which is just cool. I actually want to get all these copies separate. The classic monster collection line that Universal put out on DVD probably like 10 years ago or so now. Yeah, it's been like 10-15 years since they put these ones out, but I want to get all these. I think they look nice with the blue sides, very uniform. And I also want to get all these 2-packs separate like this. I have Werewolf of London and She-Wolf of London, which is a cool 2-pack. And then Dracula's Daughter and Son of Dracula, which Son of Dracula is really fun, actually, as Lon Chaney Jr. playing the Dracula character, or known as Alucard in this movie. I have a couple of the Abbott and Costello movies, Meet Frankenstein, which this is one of the classics, and if you're going to watch any of the Universal monster movies around Halloween time, this is one I would highly suggest. It has all the monsters in it, and it's, it's funny, and it has the classic Universal scares in it too. Just an all-around really good movie if you're a classic monster fan. And then Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, which this is a really cool Abbott and Costello Meet movie, one of my favorites. Probably after Meet the Monster, this is probably my second favorite Abbott and Costello movie. And I have this cool King Kong collection that comes with King Kong and the Son of Kong. And it's been a long time since I've seen Son of Kong, but King Kong is just classic. And then King Kong versus Godzilla, which I've never seen, but I do look forward to checking this one out eventually. This Sons of Kong set, which actually features no sequels to the King Kong movies, but it features all these, really cheap, that you can get on really cheap packs, these really cheap horror movies that are like ape or gorilla based or jungle themed, something like that. You find these on horror packs all the time, but this is an Alpha Video set, and I actually like Alpha Video when it comes to buying these like cheaper horror movies that you can get in bargain packs. I always think Alpha Video does a pretty decent job with the packaging, which is the main reason I bought this. Just a really nice DVD cover here. Basically the main reason I bought this, and this is just a nice pack. Comes with 10 of these really stupid 8 movies, but some of them have Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi in it, and especially with Karloff, no matter what movie he was in, he always did a really good job and was always very professional about it. So I always like to check out anything with Karloff in it. Then I have the Ed Wood classic Bride of the Monster, and this is actually the only Ed Wood movie I own on DVD right now, but eventually I want to get more of his films because Ed Wood is just awesome. This one has Bela Lugosi in it, of course. And then another Lugosi film, The Return of the Vampire. And this is a pretty good movie. It has Lugosi, of course, as a vampire, which is cool because he didn't do Dracula too many times. He did it in the first Universal Dracula movie, and in another movie, Mark of the Vampire, and then he also did it, he played the Dracula character in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. So this is, I think, the only like the 4th time he ever played the vampire Dracula character, but I could be wrong. He could have done more little cameo type things, but Dracula as a vampire, I meant Bela Lugosi as a vampire or Dracula is always a treat in a movie. So this is just really good for that alone. Then I have from William Castle, 13 Ghosts, the classic. And this is pretty good. I really wouldn't call this movie scary. It's more of like a mystery family movie in a sense that has like ghosts in it and stuff, but it's just really fun to watch. William Castle always does a good job making fun horror movies. And then The Haunting from Robert Wise, which this is a really, really good movie. I was actually surprised by this. I've seen the remake of this too, which I thought was garbage. But this is pretty good for a classic ghost movie. Would recommend this one. And then I have some Vincent Price here, House of Wax, which is really awesome. One of Vincent Price's best performances, but he always does just a fantastic job in any movie he's in. And it also, this DVD also comes with Mysteries of the Wax Museum, which House of Wax is actually a remake of Mysteries of the Wax Museum, but in my opinion, that's an example of when the remake is actually better than the original. And then House on Haunted Hill. This is the Warner Brothers edition of this, and there's a lot of budget copies of this movie from, because this movie's in public domain, so you can get this movie at dollar stores or anything. But I've always liked that I have the Warner Brothers release of this, and this is an older release they put out. So I actually don't know how many times Warner Brothers has officially released this, the Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill. I know there's a 2-pack that you can get with the remake, which the remake of House on Haunted Hill it's okay. Definitely not anywhere near the Vincent Price one, but it's better than the remake of The Haunting. But this is just awesome. This is one of my favorite horror movies ever. This is my favorite William Castle movie, and probably my favorite Vincent Price movie, which is very hard to say because, like I said, he's great in almost every movie he's in. And then I have The Fly and The Return of the Fly, both with Vincent Price. And these movies are just classic. The original Fly is actually a really good science fiction movie, and I would put that up there with Planet of the Apes as one of the best, 60s science fiction movies, or, horror movies ever. Just really good stuff. And then a couple midnight movie packs I have here. This one has The Land That Time Forgot, which is based on a Michael Moorcock story, which Michael Moorcock is actually one of my favorite science fiction authors. Then it has The People That Time Forgot, which I've never seen. And then it also has Panic in the Year Zero, which I've seen, and that was actually alright. Panic in the Year Zero. But the main reason I bought this pack was for The Last Man on Earth, and this is actually a really nice quality print of Last Man on Earth here from MGM. And again, just like House on Haunted Hill, Last Man on Earth is in public domain, so you can pick up some really shitty quality DVDs of it. So whenever you see one released by MGM or a real DVD company, definitely pick one of those up. But again, just a really cool pack, mainly just for Last Man on Earth. The other movies are fun too. Little bonuses, I guess. And then another midnight movie, MGM 4-pack, and this one comes with The Phantom from 10,000 Leagues, The Beast with a Million Eyes, and War Gods of the Deep, which has Vincent Price, and At the Earth's Core with Peter Cushing. Which the reason I bought these, of course, are the Peter Cushing and Vincent Price movies, and these are movies that I always see on either cheap packs or just random horror packs, but I've actually never seen either of these. So if anybody knows if they're actually worth my time, that would be cool to know. I've actually seen reviews on these, and I can't remember if they're any good or not. But War Gods of the Deep was pretty good, and At the Earth's Core was good too. This is kind of like a underwater type science fiction movie, and this is a center of the earth type science fiction movie. Good stuff though. And then I have the couple of the Dr. Phibes movies, the Abominable Dr. Phibes with Vincent Price. And this actually came out in '71, which with classic horror, it's hard to really make a timeline of where it ends and where it begins, because just like this, I would consider this a classic horror movie, but at the same time, I also consider a lot of the exploitation movies from the 70s to be kind of part of a new wave of more violent horror movies that were coming out at the time, which in my opinion starts with Night of the Living Dead, which in a lot of people have the same opinion, where Night of the Living Dead is the end of the classic horror movies and also the beginning of the next wave of horror movies, like the exploitation and the violent zombie movies from the 70s. So sometimes it's hard to decide, I guess, or categorize what makes a movie a classic horror movie and not so. And I know in some people's opinions too, they consider Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a lot of those exploitation movies classic horror, but in my opinion, I consider them something different. And then I also have Dr. Phibes Rises Again, the sequel, which is pretty good. Not as good as the original, but the Dr. Fives movies are just really fun to watch. Vincent Price, again, just always does a great job. And then this is the Mario Bava film, Black Sabbath, with Boris Karloff. And this is a really good horror movie. It's actually in Italian, the language, but it has, English subtitles on it, which is cool. And so, you can't watch this movie dubbed, even though I know there's like a dubbed version of this movie, but it just hasn't been released on DVD yet for some reason. I can't exactly remember why. But this is a nice release here, and this has, of course, Boris Karloff in it, which just makes it even more great than it would have been already. And this is a really spooky, good movie. I would say if you've never seen this, definitely give this movie a try. Really good stuff here. One of Mario Bava's best, definitely. And then last, right down here, I actually have this classic horror 3-pack, which comes with the Rites of Dracula, which is actually the Satanic Rites of Dracula, just with a different name. And then Dementia 13, which is the reason I bought this pack, because Dementia 13 is Francis Ford Coppola's first movie, and it's really good. I love that movie. I would love to get a better copy of it. This is the only way I have it on anything right now is on this pack, but it's actually not that bad of a quality print on this 3-pack right here. So Dementia 13 I would highly recommend if you've never seen it, and it's on all those like horror movie packs that come with like 100 horror movies, so it's really easy to find. And then Night of the Living Dead, of course, which I mentioned before, it's one of those movies that I would consider a classic horror movie and part of the next wave of like exploitation horror that come out in the 70s. But this is a nice pack right here. It got 3 really good horror movies on it. And last, I was just going to go through my Alfred Hitchcock movies really quick, which I don't have a lot at all, but I do plan to get more of his movies one day. I have the classic Psycho, which of course is just my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie. I think it's his best. Just a really good movie, and nothing I can really say about this movie that hasn't already been said, other than I just think it's worth its reputation. Definitely a classic right here. Really well made too. Just a brilliant film. And then the sequel to Psycho, which is actually not directed by Alfred Hitchcock, but I like these Psycho sequels, so I want to get the rest of them on DVD. I obviously do not think they're as good as the original, but they're still just fun to watch for some reason. I've actually never seen this really good. One time I did watch some of it on TV, but I can't remember too much of it. But I plan on watching some of these. I also have the 3rd one on tape, so definitely plan on watching these soon. And then I have Rear Window, which I've never seen, but I've seen a ton of reviews on. So eventually I do have to sit down and watch this one for myself, though. And then The Birds, which it's been a while since I've seen this one, and like I said in one of my other videos where I talked about this movie, I was actually for some reason a little disappointed in this movie. For some reason I didn't have the payoff that I was like expecting. Like Psycho really has a lot of good twists and turns and great payoffs, and this movie I just felt like was lacking that. But again, I feel like I have to give this movie another try and see what I think about it now, because it's been a good like 5 years or so since I've seen this one. But that was my classic horror collection, and if you liked the video, definitely give it a thumbs up or leave a comment. And my next video will probably be either me going through my Hammer collection, DVD and VHSs, or my John Carpenter video, where I'm going to talk about my entire John Carpenter DVD and VHS collection, including all of the Halloween movies. So those are some of the next 2 videos I plan to put up this month, but I have a couple other videos I want to put up for October too. So again, happy October and early happy Halloween everybody, and enjoy the video.